Sorry for being as late as I am on this, I've just gotten over a cold, but there is no way that I can just leave my thoughts on Avengers Endgame at a spoiler-free review and nothing else. There's a lot to go over, so let's get into it. Avengers Endgame has been in theaters for over 2 weeks now, and it is just slaughtering every box office record there is. It is no question going to be the biggest film of the year, and it is well on its way to overtaking Avatar to become the new highest-grossing movie of all time. By the time I upload this, it might already be there. And as much as Avatar blew my mind, I would have to vote Endgame as the more deserving of the two. First thing I gotta say, what an amazing job the marketing did keeping us in the dark about how things were going to go down in this movie. The major spoilers begin roughly 1/10 of the way into this 3-hour movie, and the trailers still managed to be incredibly vague about everything. And let me tell you, before opening night, I stayed off of Google when I heard that spoilers were leaking like crazy, I stayed away from any YouTube comments, and I even stayed away from my YouTube feed so I didn't run into any scenes illegally recorded by people who saw it early. I was a little disappointed by how the last trailer briefly showed Tony Stark back on Earth, but after seeing how Captain Marvel rescues him barely 10 minutes in, I didn't mind so much. When he returns, he reunites with Pepper, who those who saw the Avenged the Fallen posters already knew survived the snap from the fact that she was in color. And I find it kind of funny how the movie itself never at any point establishes whether or not Happy Hogan survived, but his poster did. So it's 3 weeks since the end of Infinity War, and the Avengers detect a gigantic wave of radiation on a distant planet similar to the one that came when Thanos snapped the gauntlet. They realize that this must be the planet where Thanos has resided, and that he used the stones again for some reason. Captain America orders, "Let's go get this SOB," and then the title suddenly appears at, minute number 20? I was thinking, does this beat out Pacific Rim and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind for how much of the movie has gone by before the title appears? And that's not counting movies like Inception and It Follows, where it appears as the credits roll. So almost immediately after they take off in the Guardian spaceship, they arrive at Thanos' planet, and I was like, wow, that was quick. How are they going to make this a 3-hour movie? Now, my theory as to how they were going to bring everyone back was that the Red Reality Stone was going to be key, which I figured from the way that the last trailer had all the flashbacks in black and white, except for the objects that were red. But in retrospect, I guess they just wanted to give us a hint that we were in for the Schindler's List of superhero movies. But anyway, it was apparent that one who possesses the Reality Stone could only control the environment in which they're present, considering how in Infinity War, Thanos used the Reality Stone to turn Drax and Mantis into blocks and slinkies, and then they immediately turned back to normal as soon as he teleported away. So my idea was that they were going to start by getting hold of the Reality Stone, so that they could use it to make all their allies who died in the snap present, so that they could all fight Thanos for the stones and use them to bring everyone back permanently. But this, and pretty much every theory we had, are all out the window nearly right off the bat. Because as the Avengers bust into Thanos' cabin, they find that he used the stones the second time to destroy the stones, so that there was absolutely no going back, which Thanos dramatizes with, "I am inevitable." Then Thor is just enraged, and he whacks off Thanos' head with his axe, prompting him to say, "I went for the head." And I'm just sitting there dazed. The stones are gone, Thanos is dead, anything could happen now. I was now even more clueless about what was going to happen than before I got started with the movie. So when the Avengers realize that they failed yet again, the screen goes black and stays black for what feels like half a minute, until the word 5 appears on screen. 5 what? Years. No. Later. Dang, after the ending of Infinity War, how do they still manage to tear us fans apart even more? Indeed, 5 years go by with the world thinking that they have to eternally live with Thanos' desolation. Until our savior, the Rat. Down in the storage for the belongings of those who died in the snap is Scott Lang's van, where Rat crawls around the controls and flips a switch, and beams Scott back up out of the quantum realm after he got trapped there at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp. You have to wonder if, when he looked forward in time, Doctor Strange got any kind of chuckle out of the fact that their one shot at victory relies on a rat. 14,605,000. How many do we win? One. Just one. And this is the first time that Paul Rudd really impressed me as an actor. He was great with confusion, fear, and emotion as he learns of what happened, and when he goes down to that Vietnam War-like memorial with the names of everyone in America who vanished, and he searches for Cassie's name but instead finds his own, and later reunites with her, now a teenager. Now, I thought that Ant-Man's setup for this movie that came at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp was just meant to add to the uncertainty of how Endgame is going to play out, like it was just there so that viewers would ask, how is he going to get out of the quantum realm? And I was surprised to see that it was far more vital to the plot than I thought it would be, because Scott goes back to Avengers headquarters to tell Steve and Natasha that as he spent those 5 years in the quantum realm, only 5 hours went by for him. So he brings up the possibility of using the quantum realm to travel through time and retrieve the Infinity Stones. With an inkling that they may at long last have a new plan, they get the gang back together, and we see that some of the other Avengers have gone through some pretty drastic changes. Some sad, some amusing, some both. Bruce Banner has made himself permanently at the halfway point between himself and the Hulk, and he now sounds exactly like Ray Romano. Hawkeye is now a ruthless vigilante hunting down cartels and gangs to deal with the loss of his entire family to the snap. And Thor is now just chilling at the seaside village that he's made into the new Asgard, and he's profoundly overweight and just drunk off his butt. Which they do play for laughs at times, but it's also a bit sad, because you know that just letting himself go is a result of him trying to deal with the fact that he was so close to stopping Thanos, and yet couldn't do it, so he's felt the most at fault. Tony Stark is reluctant to go through with the plan, because he did still get married to Pepper and they now have a child. So he doesn't want to risk losing what he does have. But he still tries to build a time GPS on the off chance that it works, and to his surprise, it works. So the Avengers assemble for the first time in 5 years to go back in time. Captain America, Iron Man, the Hulk, and Ant-Man go to New York City during the battle of the first Avengers movie, where the time, space, and mind stones are. Thor and Rocket go to Asgard during Thor the Dark World to extract the Reality Stone from Jane Portman, and Thor also gets to pick up his old hammer. And Black Widow, Hawkeye, War Machine, and Nebula go to space during Guardians of the Galaxy for the Power and Soul Stones. And this is part of what makes this feel like such a proper conclusion to this era of Marvel. The Avengers are journeying back to their past successes to fix their failure. The whole movie is basically fan service, but it's fan service that's vital to the plot, and that makes all the difference. And the second act is packed with a few moving scenes, that conversation between Thor and his mother, Tony Stark getting one last moment with his father when they have to travel back to the 70s for the Space Stone, not to mention Stan Lee's final cameo, where he plays a younger version of himself driving by and shouting something like, "Make peace, not war." Man, how fitting is it that Stan Lee's last cameo is one where he's young again? That just works so well. And that scene when Captain America steps into the elevator with those undercover Hydra agents, who they now know had been playing S.H.I.E.L.D. at the time, Cap whispers into Brock Rumlow's ear, "Hail Hydra." Next shot is him walking out of the elevator with the case that has the Mind Stone. That was the first big moment in the movie that got audience applause. The very first thing that I disliked about this movie, however, was when those Asgardian guards were chasing Rocket yelling, "Get that rabbit!" Why did people think that was such a knee slapper in Infinity War that they had to do it again here? It's not funny at all. How do you mistake a raccoon for a rabbit? Someone please explain this to me. So while Nebula and War Machine go get the Power Stone, Black Widow and Hawkeye go to Vormir, which as we know is where Thanos sacrificed Gamora for the Soul Stone. So when the two of them get there, they of course learn from Red Skull that someone needs to give their life, leading to a great scene that had me on edge the whole time. Hawkeye knows he should be the one because of what he's become, while Black Widow knows that he still has a family to see again and she doesn't. So they fight each other to be the one to leap off the cliff. Man, I kept thinking it was Hawkeye who was going to be the victor, but it was Black Widow. The second time I saw the movie when I brought my sister with me, she was sobbing. Black Widow was her favorite character. She's gone and even an Infinity Snap can't undo a Soul Stone sacrifice. However, I still need to talk about that one plot hole that I couldn't stop thinking about after my second viewing. I'm kind of surprised no one's been talking about it. After Thanos in the past captures Nebula, she says to past Gamora, You want to know what Thanos has to do for the Soul Stone? So Nebula knows that Thanos sacrificed Gamora. She's aware of what is necessary to achieve the Soul Stone. With that established, it begs the question, why didn't Nebula warn Natasha and Clint? Why didn't she warn all of the Avengers of this before they set out on their mission? This is a flaw so easily fixable. She could have told them that someone needed to be sacrificed to obtain the Soul Stone, so Clint volunteers himself, and then Natasha unexpectedly takes his place when they're on Vormir. The fact that the writers didn't notice this plot hole and therefore didn't come up with such a simple solution kind of got to me. So Thanos looks into Nebula's memories and discovers that he will eventually succeed in his mission, and that the Avengers are trying to undo it. So he follows them back into the future to defeat them and carry out a new plan to destroy the entire universe and build a new one. When the Avengers get back first, they mourn Natasha for a while, and then they construct a vessel for the Six Stones out of Iron Man's armor. Hulk, being the only one who can withstand the radiation blast, puts it on, snaps it, and it becomes Reverse Genesis 3:19. To the dust we went, and from the dust we will return. The first bit of confirmation is when Clint gets a call from his wife. But then Thanos' ship blasts out of the quantum machine, and he just fires everything he's got at Avengers headquarters, blowing the whole place to Kingdom Come. With their combined powers, they all manage to survive, rise up out of the rubble, and face Thanos one last time. This final battle was the number one thing about this movie that had immeasurable expectations to live up to. And holy mackerel, it did not disappoint. This is the greatest superhero showdown ever. It makes the airport battle in Captain America Civil War look like a sissy fight. Now, we remember that scene from Age of Ultron where everyone tries their hand at lifting Thor's hammer, and when Captain America gives it a shot, it budges ever so slightly. Thor is visibly disconcerted, but he still concludes with, "You are all unworthy." And then later he's unnerved when Vision hands him his hammer. Probably my favorite 45 seconds of a movie in a while is during the Battle of Endgame, when Captain America has now reached the point where he is worthy of ruling Asgard. Thanos has Thor pinned to the ground, and they both have their hands on Thor's axe as Thanos tries to shove it into his chest. When the hammer started levitating, the first thought that went through my mind was, Vision came back somehow, even though he wasn't among those who died in the snap. But no, the hammer flies forward, smacks Thanos in the head, flies back around, landing in the hands of Captain America. Thor sits up and he goes, "I knew it." The crowd went berserk. Cap wields the hammer at Thanos, sends layers of lightning down on him. I was just losing it, squealing like an idiot. And what almost compares to that is when Doctor Strange uses sling rings to bring everyone resurrected into the fight against Thanos' army. Spider-Man, Black Panther, Scarlet Witch, Falcon, even Pepper is there in the blue iron suit Tony made for her, along with armies of magicians, Wakandans, and Asgardians. It is overwhelming how epic it is. There are so many amazing moments in this battle, you can't list them all. Scarlet Witch going one-on-one with Thanos, Spider-Man trying to save the gauntlet while hitching a ride on Thor's hammer, or Ant-Man crawling up Thanos'... No, I'm kidding. But for anyone who is disappointed that that didn't happen, you know how it should have ended is going to do it. The only drawback to the battle was that totally forced all-woman tag team fight, with each of them entering the frame one by one. At least when Infinity War had that scene where Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, and Okoye go up against Proxima Midnight, it was still played like it was just another fight on the battlefield. There wasn't so much emphasis on it being all women. In Endgame, all 10 or so of the women just happened to be there to give backup to Captain Marvel, and it started to take me out of the fun. Something tells me that that scene was a result of Brie Larson's input. Please keep her away from the director's chair. In fact, it gets to the point where Captain Marvel gains the upper hand against Thanos. She's keeping him from snapping when he has the gauntlet with all the stones again, and she's so powerful he can't even punch her. I thought for a moment that this was it for Thanos, and I was like, you're kidding me. You're going to have the bland, boring one that we were just introduced to a month ago be the one to finish Thanos off, not one of the veterans we've known for a long time. But then Thanos picks the Power Stone out of the gauntlet, giving him enough strength to slam her aside. Hooray for Thanos! Now someone else go kick his butt! So Doctor Strange signals Tony that this is where their one shot at victory will be if they achieve it, out of the 14 million scenarios where they lose. So Tony goes at Thanos one more time, but it appears to do no good. Thanos, inspired by his future self, goes, "I am inevitable." But his snap is accompanied by nothing but a clink. Tony has removed all the stones with the nanotechnology. And I am Iron Man. Thanos' army all turned to dust, and saving worst for last, Thanos is gone with the wind. But Tony, having been unable to withstand the radiation blast, is now dying. Peter Parker is there to say his last goodbye, and Pepper gives some really tender words to him as he lets out his final breath. "You can rest now." Because Robert Downey Jr. was the only cast member given the opportunity to read the entire script, I had a feeling that Iron Man was going to die in this one, and I still was not prepared. And now we know this is why Doctor Strange had to give Thanos the Time Stone to save Tony's life in Infinity War, because if they were going to win, it would be because Tony gives the finishing blow. His funeral scene was handled wonderfully. The camera slowly sways from one person to another as they watch the old arc reactor with the words, "Proof Tony Stark has a heart," floating on the lake. And that one teenager present I almost didn't recognize, but it was just as the camera moved away from him that I realized it was Harley, the kid from Iron Man 3. That was a nice touch. There's a moment afterwards with Clint and Wanda where Clint says, "I wish there was some way that Natasha could know we won," and Wanda replies, "She does know. They both do." Now what does she mean by that? It could just be an expression of optimism, like when we try to assure each other that our pets go to heaven, even though we don't know for a fact that they will. So is that all the line means, or does it imply that Scarlet Witch knows something about afterlife in this universe? Could be a small detail that's left to interpretation. And finally, Steve Rogers is sent back in time again to put the Infinity Stones back in the exact time and location that they got them, but he doesn't return through the quantum machine. While Sam Wilson starts getting worried, you can tell from Bucky's smile that he already knows what's going on. A moment later, Sam finds Steve sitting on a bench, now an old man, and he passes his shield and the Captain America name down to him. We get a final shot with Steve back in the 40s in this branched reality he created, living the life with Peggy Carter that he lost. That was beautiful, the best way they could have ended Captain America's story. And now we know what Chris Evans was talking about when he said it was a very emotional last day on the set of Endgame. I left the theater feeling so overrun with emotions. I felt supremely satisfied by the conclusion of the Infinity Saga the movie delivered, and at the same time I felt so empty, knowing that the MCU was never going to be the same. I don't even know if they can make any more movies called Avengers, with 2 of the main Avengers dead and 1 of them grown old. It's sadder still that the Russo brothers have said that they're done with the MCU after Endgame. They're leaving a legacy behind of the 2 best of these movies, as well as Infinity War, which I put at number 6. Although, perhaps there could be another Captain America movie. How he gets out of that branched reality as an old man is, as of right now, anyone's guess, but I would like to see another movie about his life there. We could see more of him wielding Thor's hammer. And I wonder, with Sam Wilson now the new Captain America, is he going to redesign his titanium wings so that they look more like the wings of a bald eagle, another symbol of America? Whether he does or not, it's going to be sweet seeing him flying around with that shield. And I realized by the end of the movie that Black Widow never got one last good fight in, so it's only fitting that she gets her own movie about when she was a Russian spy. Reportedly, production is going to be starting next month, so I'm guessing we'll be seeing it November of next year. On a less positive note, Thor joins the Guardians of the Galaxy at the end of this movie, which means that my 2 least favorite Marvel brands are combining. I never really cared for any of the Thor movies, and I am that one jerk who hates the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I have even less hope due to the fact that James Gunn is back as director. As disturbing as those tweets he made 10 years ago are, I do think it wasn't a good enough reason to fire him in the first place. But nevertheless, I was looking forward to seeing if a new director with a different vision could make Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 any better. But that's not going to happen, so I'm preparing to call it Guardians of the Galaxy Strike 3. But first up in the new wave of Marvel is Spider-Man Far From Home coming at the beginning of July. I'm hoping that it will lighten the mood after Endgame, and give us some optimism for what's to come for the MCU. Whatever happens, Avengers Endgame was amazing, and I can't see any Marvel movie in the foreseeable future beating it. That's a wrap, thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like if you liked, subscribe for more. This is Pop Culture, I'm Alex Pop. You have our respect, Stark. Though you're done, the other half of humanity are alive again. They will remember you.